everyone, I am Chris with Simply Classic and today is new pattern day. We're super excited about this one, but I have to say we're excited about all of them. If you were a member of the Mystery Quarterly subscription box, then you already know this pattern. You received it in December for your fourth quarter mystery box. But if not, then here we go. This is the new pattern. It is called the Lusso. And it's kind of a hobo style bag. It's got some pretty cool features. It is a shoulder bag. We love shoulder bags, right? It is got a adjustable strap through buckles. Okay, so each side of the bag has buckles, and you can put as many or as few holes as you want to make this strap as long and as adjustable as you'd like. So if you really would like a longer shoulder bag than this, just make the strap longer, no problem. If you don't want it as long, you can certainly either make more holes or just make the strap itself shorter. So that's the great thing, super customizable. On the side, we have this really cool detail here where we've got some, in this case, Chicago screws. And I do recommend that you use Chicago screws for this bag because if you use rivets here, kind of hard to get in there unless you have a hand set rivet tool. If you do, you'll be fine. Otherwise, you know, the Chicago screws might be the better way to go. Of course, we have Chicago screws listed in the description below. We do not sell them, but a lot of your leather suppliers do. Okay. On the inside, of course, we have a nice zipper opening at the top. And then on the inside, we have our standard zipper pocket on one side, we have a slip pocket on the other, and then the ever essential key fob. Okay, so we're going to go through this tutorial today, and we're doing this gray one in the tutorial. The other thing that I would like to mention is that if you make this bag, you need to make it out of a fairly soft faux that has some drape. So in this case, this faux geometric or abstract geometric that we have is perfect for it, but also any of our solids, any of our suedes, any of our solid textures are fabulous for this bag. They have a lot of drape, they're super soft, and they work really well. Okay, so we're going to start off by going over pattern pieces. For the pattern, we have one strap, okay, easy enough. We have two strap connectors. We have two exterior pieces, and these are exactly alike, okay. On the back, you are going to put the Decaville light centered in the middle, it's about a quarter of an inch from each side. And then you're going to have a Decaville heavy at the bottom. Now when you adhere these, you want to first put your Decaville heavy on. And you want your Decaville heavy to be a ½ inch from the bottom. And of course centered from side to side. Then when you put the Decaville light on, you want to keep a small space, about 1/8 of an inch, in between those two pieces. So that when we complete this bag and this folds up, it has space to fold, and it's going to give us a nice crisp edge on the outside. Okay, and the Decaville light, as you can see, is a little bit different here in the shape of it, and the reason why is because it is a bit of a slouchy bag, and you really want to make sure that you use fabrics and faux that have got some give and some slouch to them. You don't want to use anything too stiff. So for instance, the ostrich probably wouldn't be great for this, but our solids and our suedes and our textures, all those are very lightweight and they'd be amazing for this. Of course, as well as this abstract geometric. We also have a zipper overlay. We have a key fob piece here. And then of course the slip pocket accent. And then we have zipper pockets. So we have two zipper pockets, and of course the zipper pockets have some woven interfacing on the back. Now your kit's going to have red lining. I just have this in my kind of scrap pile, which is why I decided to use it. But we have a slip pocket that will fold in half. And then we have 2 lining pieces, and the lining pieces are exactly the same as the main body pieces. You're going to cut 2, and of course you have you have woven interfacing on the back. Okay, and that's it. There's not a lot of pieces to this bag. It's a very light hardware bag, and it is really a fairly quick sew. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Step 1 is the handle and handle connectors. So we're going to work on that first. So I drew a line down the center of my handle, and I put double-sided tape 1/4 inch on both sides of that line. I'm then going to start by folding the side up, and I'm going to leave a small space between these edges. Now, let me say that the handle, obviously I have a length for you to cut this handle, but if you want your handle to be longer, you can certainly cut it longer. You can make this handle as long or as short as you would like. Of course, this is an adjustable handle because of the buckles, so that does help make it shorter. But you might want to cut it a little bit longer if you feel like it is too short of a handle for you. Okay, so just like everything else, make it your own, however you would like to do it. So we're going to go ahead and peel the backing off the other side. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to fold this up. And again, just leave a small space between the 2 long edges so that when we fold this, that space, or there's going to be like a take-up value. And you'll be able to easily fold this without having problems, theoretically, with any kind of twisting or turning. And I have done a couple of videos on this and to show you how to make sure to avoid twisting handles. So make sure you check that out. But we will continue to fold this up, leaving that space. And the space doesn't need to be super large. It's just about 1/8 of an inch, just enough for you to fold those edges in. Okay, so now we're going to fold again, and we're going to go ahead and clip this, and then we'll stitch. But before we stitch, if you would like to have a decorative end, meaning an end that curves or an English point, you're going to need to cut that in before you sew. You can also just leave it straight. You don't have to do any kind of decorative end. You can either hand cut it or you can use a tool to cut it. And all of the edge punches you can get at leather supply stores. So someplace like Springfield Leather or Tandy Leather or one of those will certainly get you the edge punch tools. Now, the only thing I say to you on that, or recommend, is do not skimp on price. They can get a little pricey, but if you get the ones from, say, Amazon, the first time you hit it, it's probably going to bend, and I speak from experience on that. So your edge tool is shaped like this. This is actually 1.5 inches, and I like using the 1.5 inches on a 1-inch strap because it doesn't give me such a severe curve. It's just the slight curve, and that's kind of what I like. So if you decide you'd like to get a punch, it's certainly a great investment and will make your bags look a little bit more maybe sophisticated, you know, add that extra little touch. You're just going to use a cutting board. You're going to take the tool and place it on the edge. And one thing I will say is I do like to put a little piece of double-sided tape here underneath so that as I punch, these edges don't move. Okay, see how they're open right here? I want to make sure that they stay together so that I don't have a problem with anything shifting. So I'm just going to cut a little piece of double-sided tape off, put it here on this edge. Fold that once again, and now that's staying nice and tight. Put this right on the edge. Give it a few whacks. And that did not go through. Let me try it again. I think my tools need to be sharpened. And then I have a nice slight curved edge there. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And again, this is optional. You certainly do not need to do this. Just something I like to do. And let me put that double-sided tape on there. I'm always forgetting that until I'm about to punch, and then I think, oh gosh, get that on there. Go ahead and fold that over so it's nice and even. Now, whenever you use a tool like this, you always want to have, and right now I don't, and that's another reason why it's not cutting as well. You always want to have a granite surface or some kind of super hard surface underneath. It's going to make the tools work better. Now, you see, I don't have that. I don't want to take my granite slab and bring it over here. But if you do, and if you do use it, you're going to find that your tools cut better. So we're just improvising right now since we're filming. And then I have that curved edge. Now, before I edge paint this, I will take a lighter and just burn off these little edges that are sticking out, just to kind of clean that up a little bit. You can see they're kind of furry and they're sticking out. I can even do that before. Just bring it right across and you can see they're gone. Okay? So from here, we're going to stitch this. And the reason why I wanted to punch those edges before I stitched is because I want to stitch along that edge right there. It's going to help hold it in place and it's going to give it a more finished look. For this bag, also like the double stitch. So let me show you. I know it was probably hard to tell in the initial video or the initial part of the screen or shot, but I think you can see here that there's 2 lines of stitching, and you don't have to do that, it's optional, but I like the double stitch on both the handle and also the handle connector. So if you'd like to do that, go ahead and do it. We're going to do it in this video. And you see on here that I did only 1 stitch on this short edge, but 2 stitches down the side, and I just stopped that second stitch right at the curved edge. Okay. So let's go ahead and get our edge guide set up here and start stitching. So I'm going to do the first one at 1/8 of an inch, and then I'll do the second one at 1/4 of an inch. So around my curved edges, I am going to, let me see how far I am here. I'm going to do some hand stitching, or some hand twirls here on my machine, just to make sure I have a nice even stitch here at the bottom. Let's go ahead and stitch this. So I'm going to do some hand stitching again, or some hand turns of the wheel here. So I can make sure everything looks nice and good and lined up, and then we'll continue. Now, since this is black, I am going to do just a tiny back stitch to hold all this in place. Your back stitch just needs to be about 1 or 2 stitches, just enough to hold it. Okay, before I move my edge guide to do the second line of stitching, I'm going to go ahead and do my handle connectors because I want to make sure that they're all the same distance from the edge. So take your handle connectors and we're going to repeat that process. We're going to draw a line down the center and we're going to fold the long edges into the center. So draw that line, let's draw this line. And then usually for handle connectors, I am going to make sure the 2 long edges match in the middle. I do not need any kind of spacing. And because of that, since we're not turning it again, we're only turning it once, I'm going to use my 1/2 inch double-sided tape. Now, use what you have. You don't need to go out and buy, 5 different kinds of double-sided tape. I have them because I sew all the time and, obviously I use them for different things, but again, this is not necessary. If you were going to do anything, I would get 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch. Or 1/4 inch and 1/8 of an inch, one of the two. I mean, if you only can get 2, those would be my suggestions. Okay, so I'm going to fold this into the center. And you see I'm not pulling, I'm just laying it down. And I'm going to make sure my edges, my short edges match up. Okay, see how it's laying nice and flat. We're going to repeat, and this time, of course, make these 2 edges match. So there's no space in between on the handle connectors. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing with this one, and then we will stitch. And then I'll move my edge guide, and then we'll stitch the 1/4 of an inch afterwards. But let's get all of these 1/8 of an inch lines done first so that they all match. Okay. So now that the 1/8 of an inch lines are done, I'm going to go ahead and move my edge guide, and we're going to stitch a 1/4 of an inch. So we have the 2 handle connectors done with 2 rows of stitching. So I'm going to go ahead and add that here. And I am going to start right where I stitched on that small curved edge. And then I am going to do just a tiny little back stitch and then keep on going. I don't want to stitch beyond my curved edge line. All right, and we'll do the other side. Then we have our handle and our handle connectors done. Now, as an added step, if you would like, you can go ahead and put a little base coat and edge coat on these edges. You don't have to. The black has got black backing, so it's not super noticeable, but if that's something you'd like to add, you can certainly do that. Don't do it on the handle connectors. That's just going to be a waste of time. Both ends are going to be hidden, but on the handle, you may want to go ahead and do it. Okay, so I'm going to put all this aside, and we are going to move on to step 2, which is the lining. So the first thing I want to do is take my 2 lining pieces, and I'm going to find the center. I'm going to find the center of both the top and the bottom. It's just going to help on the bottom when we go to close the bag through the zipper pocket. We'll be able to line up that bottom easily. Okay, set one of these, or you can set these both aside for just a minute. And let's work on the slip pocket. So you can take your slip pocket piece and you're going to fold it so that the short edges match. We're going to stitch down both sides. Take my edge guide out of the way. From here, we're going to turn the pocket. So just go ahead and fold your seam allowance down right at your stitching line. Hold that edge down and then poke it through. And then just use your point turner to poke out that final little bit of edge. Okay, you can take this to the iron and press it. I am going to just baste it closed. And then take your slip pocket accent piece. I'm going to put some double-sided tape on both sides, and we're going to stick it right on the top of this pocket. Okay, peel the backing off the tape, one side, and place the pocket about in the middle, just shy of the middle of the slip pocket accent. And go ahead and remove the other side and then just fold this in half. And then we're going to top stitch. I'm going to go ahead and cut my ends off. And then take one of your lining pieces. I give you a measurement in the pattern as to how far down to put this. So let me double check here my measurements. Make sure it's centered. And this is a curved edge here. So you really are looking to see from the center what that, to measure down, but you know, understand it's not going to be straight across. You're going to have a little bit of checking to do from side to side to make sure your pocket isn't on there crooked. So let me just make sure it is the same distance. On both sides here at the curved edge where I have it. Okay. Then I'm going to hold this down. A lot of you ask me about these magnets. We do have a discount code for you down below where you can go ahead and purchase these. They are so tight magnets and they are amazing. They will hold your pockets on or whatever else you need. Okay, and see you just put the backing on and the magnet is super strong and just holds it all in place and it doesn't move. It's amazing. Okay, so we're going to stitch around and stitch this pocket in place. I always like to put my inside tag along the pocket's edge. Now this pocket is pretty small, so there's really no need to divide it unless for some reason you just want two small pockets. And then if you would like, and this is purely optional, you can put some rivets in the corners of your pocket. I do like to do that because I feel like pockets have a lot of stress with, you know, us constantly going in and out. So I'm going to just on the inside of my stitching punch a hole with my hole punch. And then if you are going to do this, you really want to put some kind of stabilizer on the back behind the rivet because there isn't a whole lot to hold it in place. And so I always keep little pieces of Decaville Heavy handy by my machine, just little scraps that I'll use for that purpose. So you can also use little pieces of leather, Peltex, whatever you may have on hand, just something to help secure it. So I'm just gonna slide these in. I will set those rivets and then we'll continue. Okay, we're going to quickly do the key fob. Basically, I took the key fob piece, put double-sided tape on one long edge and pinched the two long edges together. We're going to go ahead and stitch this. And I use 1/4 of an inch seam allowance when I do this. And I'm going to take this over to the cutting table and I'm going to cut off 1/8 of an inch from this seam allowance. So it's going to go from 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch. It's just going to give it a nice even edge because let's face it, whenever we fold these, we can never get them exactly perfect no matter how much we try. So I'm going to go cut that and then we'll put our swivel clasp on. So now that that's cut down, I got a nice smooth edge. If you'd like, you can go ahead and put some base coat and edge paint on that. I usually don't. It's on the inside, and especially in this case, since the backing is black on this gray, if you want to just kind of add that kind of high-end look, you can certainly do that. So I'm going to put my key fob on the edge. You can either stitch this or you can put a rivet. Either way, stitching is easy enough, so I usually stitch, I usually put a rivet, so let's stitch this time. And then here we go, our key fob is complete. All right, we're going to put these pieces aside for just a minute. And we're going to work on our zipper pocket. So take your zipper pocket pieces and you can either use Wonder Clips here or you can use some double-sided tape. I really like using 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape. I feel like it holds everything in place just a little bit better. And it kind of helps deter, I won't say prevent, but deter wavy zippers. So I'm just going to put a row of this tape right on the top of both pocket pieces. And then go ahead and peel the backing off of one side. Lay your zipper right on top. And then go ahead and stitch that in place. Once that's stitched, you're going to open up the seam allowance and you're going to make sure that your zipper tape is laying flat. Okay, so just kind of finger press that down. And then we're going to top stitch that in place. So take the backing off the other side. And we are going to place that down. And we're going to repeat. Ran out of bobbins, so let me go ahead and replace that real quick. I knew it was getting close. And then we are going to open up the seam allowance just like we did the other one. And top stitch. All right, I'm going to take my 1/4" double-sided tape and put some tape along both long edges of the zipper tape here, just so I have that ready. And then I'm also going to add my zipper pull. So I like to burn the edges of the zipper. And the trick to this is to make sure you come in at that 45-degree angle. And this is complete. So we're going to set this aside, and we are going to take our other lining piece. We're going to take our zipper overlay and some more 1/4" double-sided tape and put some double-sided tape along the edge of the overlay. And once again, I give you a measurement as to how far down to put this overlay in the pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and stick it down and then double check. And then we're going to stitch around the outside of this rectangle. Now, typically I pull my threads through the back and tie them off. You really don't have to do that with this pattern because it is so, the actual faux is very busy and you're not going to be able to see the back stitch. But of course you're always welcome to do that if you prefer. So from here, go ahead and cut the center of this zipper pocket out. And I just accidentally cut my stitching on my zipper overlay. So I'm going to re-stitch it. I'm not sure how I did that, but I did. So we're just going to come down and do a little back stitch. I don't think I could do that again if I tried. Just didn't cut the lining, just cut the stitch with these big old scissors, go figure. All right, so we have the back, we have the front, looking good. We're going to take our zipper pocket, and with the zipper closing in whichever direction you prefer, I like mine closing to the left. We're going to take the backing off the tape and center this zipper in the opening. All right, now we're going to stitch around the smaller rectangle. Once that's completed and you have your inner rectangle stitched, go ahead and flip your pattern piece or your lining over and take your upper pocket and just fold it down to the bottom pocket, matching up your sides. Go ahead and cut off the bottom pocket to match the top. And then flip this lining piece back over. Take your lining and just pull it out of the way, and then you're going to stitch. Make sure you back stitch. You're going to back stitch here all the way down and back stitch really good at the bottom. We're going to turn this around and we're going to do the same thing here. Back stitch really well at the bottom of the pocket and come up and back stitch on the zipper. And then we have our zipper pocket completed. We have the bottom of the zipper pocket open because we're going to use it to help us turn the bag. Okay. All right, so now we're going to move on to the final part of this bag. As you can see, it goes really quick, and that's the final assembly. So we're going to start out by taking our remaining zipper, and I need to cut mine to length. And the first thing we want to do is, and you can certainly draw a line for this, and I will do that to show you what I'm doing. From one end, basically one short end, just go ahead and draw a couple of lines. And you saw it's about 1 inch from the edge. Then open up the zipper just a little bit and pinch right along that line you just made, and then take that zipper tape and make a right angle against the zipper teeth. Okay. We're going to repeat it, same thing on the other side. Go ahead and pinch at the line and bring it up against the teeth. Now, if you don't draw a line, it's not a problem. You just want to make sure that when you're done, your teeth here are pretty straight. They don't have to be perfect, because when we put our zipper in on the other side and we put our zipper pull, we can cheat it a little bit, but only by like 1 or 2 teeth. I wouldn't, you don't want it to be way off, but like this is fine, okay? So with the zipper teeth going towards the back, I always find that's a little bit easier. I'm going to baste these in place. And you can certainly do that by hand. You do not have to use your machine. And I always just try to be really careful not to stitch my, my pin. So just make sure that your needle of your machine goes over your pin, not through your pin. If it goes through your pin, you'll know. And then we have our ends. Now take your main pieces, and we are going to be working from, we have some straight edges right here. Okay, so as you cut this piece out, you will see that the pattern piece has a straight edge and then it slowly curves in. So from the point where the curve starts is where we're going to put our zipper. So take it, and you can either, again, clip this, or you can use 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape. I really like to use the double-sided tape because I feel like it holds everything in place much better. And if I can find mine, it is MIA. Let's see. Here it is. Okay. So I'm just going to peel the backing, or peel the tape off here, and just put it from that point right along this curved edge. And it's not a real severe curve, it's just really a slight curve. All the way to the other side. Okay, I'm going to do that on both main pieces. Okay, so now from here, we are going to do the same thing on our lining. Let's go ahead and get all this double-sided tape on. So take your 2 lining pieces that you just finished, and let's put the tape on there as well. So you might be able to see that straight edge there a little bit better. I'm going to put it right along the curve. Okay, so now we have all our double-sided tape on. So let's start out with 1 main piece and 1 lining piece. I'll put these aside. If you have a piece you prefer to be the front, start with that. But at this point, they're both the same in my instance. So I'm going to just peel the backing off this tape. And I'm also going to pull the zipper apart. There's no reason for us to have both sides. I'm going to put the edge of the zipper, so this edge here, right against where this curve starts. Okay? So just like that. Actually, that's probably a little too far. Let me move it. And as you're cutting this pattern out, if you are unsure, or if this is one part you're not too sure about, you could certainly make a mark, draw a line, put a little notch, just something right here at this point so that you know exactly where that is. Okay, don't hesitate to do that if you want to. And just for reference, it is about 1.5 inches. So if you want to measure just to kind of make sure, you're at that 1.5 inches. Okay. And then go ahead and place the zipper tape down. Now, again, you have a slight curve here. So just work with the zipper until you can get it down nice and flat. When you get to the other edge where your straight line starts here, you're going to take your zipper and you're going to just form a right angle and make it go towards, down towards the bag. Okay, so just fold it down. So just take it, fold it back on itself, and with the sound effect, because that makes it fun, right? And then we're just going to put a clip right there. Okay. Now you can baste this in place if you like, but since I'm using double-sided tape, I don't really need to. All I'm going to do is take my lining piece and I'm going to put it right on top of my main piece, matching up the tops, matching up the sides, just making sure everything matches. And making sure my little tail goes down. Okay, so we're going to stitch this on. And here's the thing with this. Do not stitch this 1.5 inch part closed. Okay, and if you would like, again, let's go ahead and draw lines just so we make sure we don't mess anything up. Right at 1.5 inches, I'm going to draw a line, and that is where I'm going to start stitching. So I'm going to stitch from that point to the other 1.5 inches, which is right where my zipper ends. Go ahead and back stitch, and then come on all the way around and then back stitch on this side. So you can see really good here how I just stitch from one point to the other. You can go ahead and clip off this little tail from your zipper where you'd made that right angle. You can go ahead and let's burn this. And then I'm going to repeat that exact same process to attach the other side of the zipper to the main and lining piece. So I'll do that and then we'll come back. So now that I have both of my zipper ends here put on, or both sides of my zipper put on, I should say, I am going to move the linings out of the way and connect the bottoms of this bag. We're going to stitch, and then we'll top stitch. So once you stitch, go ahead and flip this open. You're going to open up the seam allowance, kind of do a finger press, and then you want to stitch down both sides of the seam to hold it open. So you're going to top stitch. So I'm going to flip this over. And then we have that seam stitched open. And then from here, if you would like, you can go ahead and install purse feet. So I give you some measurements in the pattern on where to mark and put those purse feet. It is best to put either 4 or 6 purse feet in this bag. I think 4 is enough because it's not a huge bag. You don't want to put one in the center because it's going to end up cutting your seam and your bag will fall apart. So we certainly don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and follow the pattern and go ahead and measure. And essentially I'm going to have 4 feet in each corner. So I will get those installed and we'll come back. My purse feet are installed. I put double-sided tape along the back to kind of hold it all in place and to protect my lining. Okay, so here's what we have, this great big piece of a bag. So our next step is to stitch the side seams. So we're going to go ahead and, first of all, I highly recommend you clip your zipper tail out of the way. So I'm going to put a couple of wonder clips on here just to hold it in place. Okay, when you stitch your side seams, remember we didn't stitch all the way to the edge here, we have these open ends. So you're going to clip your main part of your bag. And then you're going to separately clip your lining. And because the bag sides are curved, it's going to kind of want to buckle a little bit. It's going to be a little strange right in here. But you can clip it easily, no worries. Just use those good old wonder clips. Okay, so here's what you're going to have. Put one more right here. Okay, and these are open. So as we stitch, we're going to stitch the lining separate from the main part of the bag. You don't want to continue onto your lining. You're going to stitch the front, then we're going to stitch the side. Or you're going to do, I guess, the exterior and then the lining is what I should say, not the front and the side. So let's clip this. Okay, so here's what it looks like. So I'm going to start from here, from the top, stitch down. Then I'll turn the lining, turn this around, stitch the lining, and the same thing for the other side. And you want to make sure you back stitch really well. So just move your lining out of the way. Okay, so see, I'm just going to take this lining and move it right out of the way. Stitch the other side. And then I'm going to stitch my linings. So move, when you stitch the lining, you're going to move the main part of your bag out of the way. this point, once all of our side seams are stitched, we want to turn the bag. So we haven't boxed our corners yet or anything like that. We're going to wait to do that. Go ahead and turn it. From here, go ahead and stuff your lining into the bag. And we're going to be working with these little areas right here where our 1.5 inch straight edge was between our zippers. Okay, so from here, you want to turn the edge over. Right in between the edges of your zipper. And you're going to take one of your handle connectors. And you're going to stick it in. Now you want the right side of the handle connector to be against the lining. Okay, and you want the seam, okay, of the handle connector to kind of line up with these side seams here. You're going to put it in about 1/2 inch, and you can kind of feel where the edge is. I'm going to clip and clip. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to open up my lining seam, open up my side seam. Go ahead and fold both of those over. And then take my handle connector and stick it in. Again, right side of the handle connector goes against the lining. Stick it in about 1/2 inch. All right, so from here we want to top stitch the bag. Well, actually, even before we do that, let's go ahead and kind of finger press this down. Get all the lining finger pressed down. Now, before you top stitch, what you can do, and I should have done this before, is to put tiny little snips in the top of your bag. This isn't a huge curve here, but it is a little bit of one. So you can just put tiny little snips to give that fabric a place to go. So let me pull this out here. What I'm talking about is here's your top seam. I'm going to take my good sharp scissors, and I don't really need to cut triangles here. I just need to put snips. And certainly don't cut your stitching. If you do, go back and restitch. Just put a few little snips in here. And that will help it all lay a little flatter. Do the same thing on the other side. And obviously, if you do this before you turn your bag, it'll be a lot easier. Okay. So before I top stitch all the way around, I do want to stitch this handle in place. Now, what's going to happen is on the back side, you're going to see 2 lines of stitching because we're going to stitch this in place, and then we're going to put the buckle on, and when we top stitch, we're going to stitch the handle in place. So you're going to see another line of stitching. So if you want to use a bobbin thread that matches your lining, you can certainly do that. And all I'm going to do, and you can certainly do this from the inside because the outside will be covered when we put the handle down. So just make sure everything's opened up. Push your bag out of the way, push your other handle connector out of the way, get everything out of the way, put your zippers out of the way, and we're just going to stick this in and stitch it in place. So now this is stitched, I don't have to worry about it moving. I'm going to do the same thing on this other side. I'm going to push the bag out of the way, make sure everything's out of the way. So now we have our handle stitched in place. And again, we're still not, our box corners are still open, but we have this kind of funky looking thing with handles. So from here you want to measure where your buckles are going to go. And I give you a measurement in the pattern. So go ahead and on the back side of the connector, go ahead and measure and make a mark right in the center of the handle. Okay, so I have that mark right there. So I'm going to do the same thing on this end. Go ahead and measure and make a mark. So using a hole punch, go ahead and punch a hole. In the connector only. All right, we're going to put our buckles on. So when you put your buckle on, you want to make sure that the tongue part, where the tongue rests, is going on first. Okay, so you can thread it through that, bring it all the way up, put the tongue through the hole, and then put the rest of the strap down the other side. Okay, and then you're going to pull it so the strap is at the top, and you're going to clip the other side of the strap connector to the bottom of the bag, and it should line up perfectly. So I'm going to open my seam allowance here. I'm just going to put a wonder clip. Okay, so that's kind of how our strap connector is going to work. So do the same thing over here. We're going to thread it through, put the tongue in the hole, put the rest of the strap connector in, and then clip it to the bottom of the bag. All right. So from here, we want to top stitch the bag. Now, the bag is wide enough to top stitch on a flatbed machine. You want to make sure that you're pulling your zipper out. You've got your lining tucked in really well. If you want to press it, you certainly can. And you want to pull the main part of your bag out, okay? And then we're going to top stitch all the way around. As you top stitch, you want to go ahead and pull this handle, this buckle up, and you're going to top stitch right across the strap connector, and that's going to help hold that strap connector in place. Okay, now the side of the bag does have a bit of a curve here, so you just kind of want to make sure you have enough space for the curve, which you should. It should all match up perfectly. I am going to put a couple of wonder clips on my strap connectors just to kind of hold them in place where I need them to be. Okay, and then we are going to top stitch. So again, you can do this on a flatbed. It is wide enough. I am going to go to my cylinder arm just because I have it. It's easier to use. That's the reason why I have it. And we will get this bag top stitched. All right, we are going to top stitch. So now that the bag is top stitched, we're going to go ahead and we got to box our corners. So we're going to have to pull all of this out and turn it so we can get those corners boxed. So as we box our corners, we want to go ahead and grab our strap connector and make sure that that is clipped on here. When you turned it, your wonder clips may have fallen off, but the center seam on your strap connector should be the center seam of your bag. Okay. So I'm going to re-clip that. And then I'm going to go ahead and box my corner, matching up the bottom seam with the side seam. Make sure I have this strap connector. And it may feel a little bit loose when you, like, if you pull, like if I pull this tight, see how I have extra strap connector? You don't want that. You want to make sure the edge of your strap connector is at the edge of your bag, because this bag does have a curve to it, and you're going to need that extra little bit of slack to go around that curve. Okay, so now we have all that clipped. We'll go ahead and stitch. And whenever I box these corners, I always like to stitch from the top. So go ahead and turn this, kind of push the bag down, and then go ahead and stitch. So from here, last time, go ahead and turn the bag. Before you put the lining in, you want to go ahead and measure for your Chicago screws or rivets. And in this case, I really recommend Chicago screws just because it's easier. If you want, this is certainly an optional step. You do not need to put anything here. When your bag is full and you have it in your hand, this is going to stay pretty taut. Okay, because it's tight to the bag. But if you decide you want to go ahead and put the screws, you're going to measure down from the buckle, and I give you, again, these measurements in the pattern. You're going to measure down a few times. Let me go ahead and get my ruler here and do my measurements. And you're going to want to put a dot right in the center of the strap connector. Okay, so I think you can see these dots. So one right here, and right here. So you want to first punch a hole in your strap connector. And I'm going to tell you that if you're using this kind of tool, you're going to need one of your largest settings, because these, if you're using Chicago screws, and I get these from Tandy Leather, we do not carry them, you want to make sure that your opening is as big as the hole in your Chicago screw. Okay, so if I go through and I measure this, I can see that this is actually the hole punch I want to use. Okay. My hole punch needs sharpening, so I'm just going to kind of pull these out. Okay, from here, mark through the holes you made to your bag. Now, what you want to make sure of is that when you punch the next set of holes, you do not want to punch through the seam of your bag. If you do, if you hit the side seam at all, the stitching, it's going to come apart. So you want to make sure you don't do that. So I'm going to just hold the bag and make sure, and just go ahead and make sure it's taut, and just make sure that it's kind of lined up with the side seam, and go ahead and mark through the holes. So I can see that in this case I am just to the left of my seam, which is perfect. I've got 1, 2, and the third one is right here. Okay, so I've got my 3 marks. I'm going to get the tools I need, and I'm going to show you how to punch these holes. You're going to need a hole punch. And if you're a member of the monthly subscription box, we actually provided a hole punch for you, the perfect size. Otherwise, you can use most of these you can find in stores. It is not a problem. Just again, make sure that the size of your hole punch matches the size of your Chicago screw if you're using Chicago screws, which again is something I do recommend that you do. All right, so from here you're going to have to take your punching block, whatever you're using, and if you don't have a block like this, you can use like a piece of wood or anything that you don't mind getting a little circle in from your hole punch, okay? So stick it in your bag. You want to make sure your lining and everything's out of the way, okay? So my lining's pulled out, everything's out of the way, and I'm just going to stick this in and maneuver the bag so that I can see I'm going to do it this way, so that I can see my marks. And you do need to be a little rough with the bag, but all right. So from here, I'm going to make sure, and I'm right-handed, so let me push this in this way. Okay, I can see my first mark is right here. So I'm going to take I'm making sure my board's underneath. I'm going to take my hole punch. I'm going to make sure it's not on the seam. It's just to the left, in this case, towards me on the seam, and then go ahead and punch a hole. All right, I'm going to go down to the next one. Make sure my board is positioned. And this is a little bit of finagling, but it really gives you a nice looking bag. And I have one more. This is not hard, it's just you gotta have a little patience. Make sure you take your time to get the positionings just right. Okay, so now that I have my 3 holes, I'm going to take some Chicago screws or whatever it is you choose to use. And if you don't know what a Chicago screw is, basically it is like a rivet. It's like a big rivet, but you screw it on, okay? So see, it's a flathead screw on the back, and then on the front, it just looks like a nice big rivet. So let's get all this out of the way. Go ahead and put the front on. and then put my back on. Okay, so I'm putting the screw through the hole. And out of all of them, this back one is probably the hardest. And then once you have it screwed in enough where it grabs, you can just take a regular flathead Phillips screwdriver and tighten it. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Go ahead and get my screw through the hole so I can see the screw back coming through. And then put this front on. And then one more. And this is just a little bit easier than rivets because to get a rivet press in here would be next to impossible. Also, if you were going to do it by hand, you could certainly do that, but I think it would be a little more difficult too. So, in a whole 100 of these at a leather supply store is really not that much. So you can definitely have a supply of these that'll last you a while. And then just take any kind of flathead screwdriver. This is just one that came with my domestic sewing machine. And just screw it in. Tighten it up. Now, if you'd like to put a little bit of Loctite in these screws, it would be a great idea. Just to make sure that they hold and don't come apart. You certainly don't want that to happen. And all you need is a little dab. And if you don't have Loctite, you could use maybe a little super glue or something because you're really not going to need to take this out at any point. So I'm just tightening. And last one, tightening. Now we gave you 8 screws if you got the kit or the mystery box because we do recommend that you put one underneath this buckle. Okay, so but to punch this hole, you can just use your regular hole punch and put one right underneath here. So I'm just going to use my regular hole punch. And all I'm doing is going through the strap connector. And this is just going to be an extra layer of security to make sure everything stays nice and tight. So stick that in, have it come out the other side, and then I'll screw this one in as well. And if you prefer to put a rivet here, you can certainly do that too. You don't have to put a Chicago screw because you are going to see the back of the screw. And so that is up to you. Okay, so now we have 4 Chicago screws installed. You're not going to see this one once you put your handle on. This one's going to be hidden, but again, it just kind of adds a little bit of security for the strap connector. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that process on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and measure, punch my holes, and then put all of my Chicago screws in. I am notorious for forgetting the key fob. I'm not sure why, but I am. And I realized I forgot it. So I'm going to go ahead and just take apart a little bit of my lining and go ahead and stick it in the side seam, which is where I would have told you to stick it anyway. But don't forget your key fob. So I'm just going to back up just for a second. I will go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back once it's installed. My key fob is now installed. So from here, we are going to go ahead and finish out this bag. So put the lining inside the bag. Open up your zipper pocket. Pull the lining out of the zipper pocket. So this is the zipper pocket lining, essentially, the pocket itself. And then we're going to reach in and we're going to grab the bottom pieces of the lining and pull that through. Now, if you remember way at the beginning, we marked the center of this, so it'll make it easier at this point to match everything up. So I'm going to match my centers. Whoops, got to clip both sides. There we go. Match the sides. And we're going to stitch. I'm going to cut this seam down just a little bit. And then we're going to box the corners of the lining. So I'm going to nest this seam, meaning I'm going to have my side seam going in one direction and my bottom seam going in another. And just match those seams together. And all I'm going to make sure of is that when I do the other box, that the side or the bottom seam is going in the same direction. So we'll stitch this. And if you haven't noticed, this box corner does have a little bit of an angle to it. It's not straight, it's kind of got a curve. And then we're going to just cut this back. And then we're going to box the other side in the same manner. So my bottom seam is going in this direction, so I'm going to make sure I follow that and that it goes in that same direction on this side. And just nest those seams. And then stitch. Once your lining seams are boxed, go ahead and push your lining back into the bag. Okay, so see how nice and snug that is? It looks great. And then we'll just take our pocket and fold the edge over by about a 1/2 inch. And we will clip. Then we're going to sew this closed, top stitch it closed, using about just a really scant 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Push the pocket back in. Go ahead and zip it up. Put your lining back in place. And then we're going to put our zipper on. You can go ahead and open this up. When I put my zipper end on, I like to clip the ends down, and then you can just use a lighter to kind of burn all this together, and it will stay. You put a little bit of glue on this before you stick it on. I like to just kind of put it on and then take your screw it on. And if you prefer not to use the zipper pull here, no problem. You can just use a little piece of fabric over this. I think the zipper pull makes it look nice and professional. Or the zipper end here makes it look really nice. Okay, we'll take this off. You can go ahead and stick this in the hole. And then the last thing we need to do is to take our handle and go ahead and punch holes. So I give you measurements, of course, in the pattern for this. This is something that you can certainly use your judgment on now, depending on how adjustable you want your strap and how far apart you want your holes. So kind of use your own judgment here in making it customized for you, and especially if you made this strap longer, then you want to certainly make it you know, maybe a little bit more adjustable than not. So I'm just going to put some marks here where I want holes to be. I do suggest starting, don't put your first hole any closer than 2 inches up on your handle. okay? And then after that, you can put the holes as far apart or as close together as you would like. So I'm just gonna make 2 holes here. And you can either use the hole punch that we provided to you in the kit if you did, or in the mystery box if you do have the mystery box, or your regular hole punch. Let's see, do it here. Just make sure they're in the middle. And then go ahead and thread your handle through to whichever position you would like it. And then just like that, we have our Lusso completed. And so now we are complete with our Lusso. It is a great shoulder bag. As you add stuff to it, of course, it's going to weigh down some, which is going to give it more of a slouchy look. And it is just a cool pattern, right? So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, the Lusso. Till next time, everybody, happy sewing.